about your backstory and where you are now in your life?
Sure. The backstory is that I was born with normal hearing, and I grew up hard of hearing. My mom was deaf, my father was hearing, and my sister was deaf. None of us knew sign language. It was a shame of being hard of hearing. My only role models were other people who had normal hearing. So when you can only measure yourself by those who are around you, then the measurement is skewed. I couldn't hear, they could hear. So I always felt like I was less than. Growing up, ashamed. I got my first hearing aid when I was 9, and I hated the hearing aid. Absolutely hated it. Wore my hair down. Never showed it to anyone. Never really admitted that I was hard of hearing. In high school, I discovered the sport of barefoot water skiing. It's basically water skiing with no skis on your bare feet at high speed. I loved this sport. I was the only girl on the lake who could barefoot water ski. And it was my passion. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And one day, I turned to cross the lake, and I went faster than usual, and I hit that lake so hard, I took a tumble, and when I got into a boat, I was stuck. Just like that.
That must have been really difficult.
It was a very dark time, that's for sure. I didn't know that I was stuck at that moment. I thought I had water in my ears, and I thought, oh, the hearing will come back, and it just never did. It never did. Fortunately for me, I had transferred to Northern Illinois University, and they put me on the floor in a deaf dorm. Everyone was stuck on hard of hearing on the floor, and I was extremely uncomfortable because everybody was signing, and I wasn't dealing with being deaf very well at that point. It was a really dark time. I was struggling in my classes, and then one day I woke up and I realized I had a choice. I could continue to struggle, or I could embrace being deaf. And I thought about the people that I had just met, and they were signing, they were not using their voice, and they were happy. Why not me? So I made a decision right then and there that morning that I was going to embrace the journey of being deaf. And it changed everything for me. That one simple decision changed my life. I got out of bed, I put my hair up in a ponytail, put my hearing aid on, went out in public for the first time. I embraced learning sign language, returned the background system, and at first the disability office said no to giving me interpreters. You don't sign, they said. And I persisted. I said, I don't care. I would lip read the interpreter until I learned sign. And so that's how it started for me. Just embrace signing with the community and my husband, his staff, and we have 3 kids who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Wow. So for those, and even myself, who are not within the deaf community, what is it like? So clearly your husband and your kids and people, at least some of the people that you interact with, clearly for an interview like this who is not deaf, everyone's signing and so forth. But so for interviews, let's just say for me, or for other interactions that you have with people that are not within the deaf community, how do you navigate that? Do you have an interpreter? But do you always make sure that an interpreter comes with you? That somebody who maybe is not hard of hearing can sign? How does that process work?
I think that world is very diverse, and that's the beauty of it. Oh my gosh, it's beauty. I always say that before I became deaf, I'm going to continue the sign. Before I became deaf, my world was like this. After I became deaf, my world became this. Because I met so many awesome deaf and hard of hearing people from all walks of life, There's this myth that you are labeled depending on how much you can hear or what your hearing level is. And I think we need to throw that out the window. The way I see the deaf world, including the hard of hearing, is that it's like a ball. It's not like this. Just like this beautiful ball that bounces in different ways at times. But sometimes people will come up to me and think that I'm hearing. Sometimes they say, oh, you must be hard of hearing because you speak so well. Or they see me signing and they'll be like, oh, that. And people ask me what I label myself, and I say, hey, I'm Karen. I'm Karen. See me as a person first. That's being deaf is my identity. It is part of me, but being a wife, being a mom, being a barefoot water skier, being an author, being a speaker, there's so many dimensions. And that's the beauty of it. I've just been so blessed. I have so many awesome deaf and hard of hearing friends that I would have never met had this journey not happened.
Absolutely. I mean, the deaf community it's a community, and you meet so many other people that share, the same difference that you have. I think, and something that is very important to me and of my community and anyone that I interact with who have some type of medical condition or difference is that for instance, being deaf does not define you as a person. Like you said, you're Karen Putz. That's who you are. Just your hearing loss is one part of you. Like I said, I actually studied speech language pathology in college, and I learned a little bit about sign language, and I remember watching a film about the deaf community, and there were a few, and it's just such a unique community, to be a part of. There's not communities always like that. It's just, clearly it's an unfortunate situation, but you're lucky to have a community. That's my point.
So a blessing.
Yeah.
I can say that the darkest time of my life became the best blessing of all.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you tell us about how you began to water ski?
My older brother was a barefoot water skier, and I really looked up to him. He's 10 years older than me, and I wanted to be like him. It just seemed so cool. And I got together with some friends, and I tried to barefoot water ski until one day I put my feet in the water, got out, and barefooted. It's just like I said, I fell in love with the sport. I ski sometimes 8 times a day. That's how much I just loved it. After that happened, I just kind of really cut down on it. I skied in a camp one time, like maybe 2 years afterwards, and then maybe one time when I was 27, then I stopped. And on my 44th birthday, I tried to barefoot again, and I couldn't. I was really overweight, out of shape. It had been more than 20 years since I barefooted. But I got lucky. My husband saw a link to a Today Show. And on the Today Show was a 66-year-old woman barefooting. And all I saw was this big smile on her face on TV. There was no captions at that time. This was 2009. So in 2010, she invited me to come to Florida and meet the world barefoot champion, Keith St. Ange. And I met him and fell in love with the sport again, started competing for 4 years. Keith and I ended up writing a book together. Judy and I became best friends. And again, I met a whole world of people in the barefoot world. So right now I'm doing 50 states for my 50s. I'm 55 now. So I've done 21 states so far. I'm looking forward to barefooting in the rest of them.
That's amazing. It's really, really incredible what you're doing.
Fun.
For sure. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Judy? I know that she introduced you to the whole thing of barefoot water skiing and all of that, but you had mentioned that you're really good friends with her. And I think it would be really nice for our audience to know a little bit about Judy and how this whole, how your whole friendship started, and now you're making a career because of her.
Yeah, and as I said, she changed my life. She did. She really did. Judy was 53 when she tried barefooting for the first time on a dare. Someone dared her. She just put her feet on the water and she loved it, fell in love with the sport, met Keith, started competing. And she was the world's oldest female. And today she's in her 70s, and we still plan to barefoot together. But for several years we did Women's Week in Florida, and we were barefoot together during that week. It was awesome.
What is it like for you to be on the water? What type of joy does it bring for you?
It's the ultimate joy. It's what I call flow. When you are in flow in your life, time disappears. Joy is just magnified. Passion is magnified. Happiness. Everything is magnified when you're doing what you love. To do when you are deep into something that you are passionate about. It just kind of disappears. And I think it's the zone of passion for us. It's where we're meant to be. We're supposed to experience that in our life. We don't often set ourselves up for that experience in our life. We've been trained to go to work, come home, watch TV, and that's it.
Absolutely. I think finding joy in life is the most important thing. Otherwise, what is life? You don't find joy and, water skiing and being on the water. It's very therapeutic. My mom swims, I swim. I love being on the water. It's very relaxing as well.
It's a fun thing that you enjoy and passion.
Yeah, for sure. I've never tried water skiing or barefoot skiing, but I do like the water. It's very nice.
Come with me this summer.
You're married, and your husband and you have 3 children, Lauren, David, and Steve. How did you find out that they had hearing loss?
All 3 of my kids were born hearing, They were born hearing. There is a particular gene in our family. It's extremely rare. We're the only United States family with that gene. There's only 4 families identified with that gene worldwide. So three of my kids were born. They were hearing at that time. And then David was like almost 3 when he was identified. Lauren and Stephen got sick the same week. And they both had the exact same underwears. But Lauren was 4, Stephen was 2. So they responded very differently when they were growing up. Lauren was a little bit older, already had developed speech. Stephen had not. It was very different. Same hearing level, different experiences.
Right. Absolutely. So when you learned that you were deaf, what type of emotional support and information did you receive? Because this was a new way of living for you.
It's ironic because I had actually been going to support groups and providing support to parents before David became deaf. So my experience with that was as a deaf person. Then I became mom of a deaf child, and it changed everything. Me and my husband, we were driving home. Things were very weird because it was during the time before newborn baby screening, before we had all the resources we have today. I just remember crying. And I couldn't figure it out because becoming deaf was the greatest blessing in my life. Why was I crying about my kid being deaf? As my husband and I continued to talk, we started to recognize that we were not upset about David being deaf. No, and we were okay with it, and we fine with it. It was actually good. I heard her, and why I was crying, and why he was sad is because the world is not always nice to deaf and hard of hearing people. That's what we were sad about. Is how the world can be for deaf and hard of hearing people, not always accessible, not always equal, not always fair. That's what we were crying about. We were grieving about how will the world accept our children. Fortunately, it's been a good ride. The children all have very positive experiences, but they also face challenges with communication, especially today with the masks. It's a real nightmare today with the masks.
Yeah, the masks are hard for a lot of people that are hard of hearing, deaf. I interview more than, you're not the only person that I hear who's hard of hearing, or, is deaf. And, COVID, every single person that I've spoken to, they always say that COVID has really put an extreme barrier on their communication and difficulties, because of this mask wearing. Unfortunately, there is the vaccine now, and hopefully, given that people want to take the vaccine, there'll be changes where we don't have to wear masks, hopefully within the next year or so.
I look forward to that day.
Me too, for sure. Well, I have to say that I think it's a beautiful community that you and your family and everyone else that you interact who is deaf, that you're in. It's very unique. And I think it's something that I know you're proud of, but I'm just proud of for you and your families. It is. It's a really unique culture.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So when David was diagnosed, you did some parental research and you found Hands and Voices, which provides unbiased support and information about communication options. As a parent, where did you specifically, what did you specifically learn from this resource?
I learned that there is nothing that compares to parent and parent support. just be able to connect with another parent who was going through something similar to me. That's priceless. To be able to have a situation and bounce it off another parent. What would you do? Okay, give me some advice. I've been involved with that organization for many years. It's really grown from, at that time I started out with several others, the fourth chapter. Now we've grown, to almost every state, Canada and Canada.
Amazing. Really, really amazing. I'd love to come and watch you be, work in this setting. Maybe I'll come up and meet you one day, or you can come into the city. You're a very special person. So you have 2 degrees in counseling from North Illinois University. You transitioned from counseling into coaching. What inspired you to make this transition?
Really was when I got back on the water that the whole thing started. A friend of mine sent me a book that was called The Passion Test. I loved that book. And I also took a weekend called Yes to Success. Those 2 authors are best friends. But just from that's what started me down the passion path, is that so happy finding the secrets to unwrapping that gift. And I just want to teach it and share it with other people. So that's what I do. I do a lot of life coaching. I did a lot of speaking. I still do with Zoom. But I'm definitely traveling much less now. I'm actually enjoying it because we moved to New York and a beautiful piece of land. So I'm just outside working in the backyard and developing a backyard sanctuary.
Sounds like so much fun. I don't know where in the house you are, or where you are, but your background is beautiful.
That was from Pier 1. Now that's closed. How sad is that?
Oh, I didn't know that Pier 1 closed. Wow. Okay. Oh, it's beautiful. And just looking at your background, you must have great taste.
Thank you. This is really cute. Something that you painted?
It's not something I painted. It's just a painting that I bought. Thank you. You are an author, as you had mentioned. You wrote the book, Unwrapping Your Passion, Creating the Life You Want. Can you tell us about this book and what was the inspiration to write it?
It's one of my favorite books. I've written 14, but that's my ultimate favorite. That book took me 6 years to write it because I needed to live and learn, from people about how did you find your passion? How did you unlock that gift? 6 years and over 200 interviews, but it was awesome because I met 200 most amazing, passionate people. And it was really hard to nail down those stories in the book. It's just been amazing. Because when you meet people who are passionate, there's a different energy about them. There's an energy that's very light, there's an energy of purpose, there's an energy of no time to waste, I'm going to live my life, And so now I'm writing the sequel to that book.
That's exciting. So what's the message that you want readers to take away from reading this book?
I think the message is pretty simple. We're born with certain gifts, certain abilities, talents. We have areas of expertise that no one else has. We have a personality that no one else has. We have gifts within us that need to be unwrapped. No? And it's our purpose to unwrap those gifts and to discover that flow, to discover that joy. The world benefits when we tap into the gift of passion. And so let us sit and shout.
Great. And so from this book, I would assume that you've met other people who are trying to find their passion or have spoken with. What have you learned from the people that you interact with, both from the deaf community and culture that you're in, but then also people in general who may have some other type of difference or condition?
Wow, I have learned a lot. One that comes to mind right now is that passion does not have to cost any money. Passion is not a big thing you do. A lot of the times we say, I don't know what my passion is. The real question is, how do you want to live? That's the question you should be answering. Want to live. All of a sudden, if you say, oh, well, I don't want any debt anymore, okay, then you know that you don't want to live with debt anymore. You do know. Living in abundance. Why not focus on living in abundance instead? So that's one way, one example. The other thing is that one night I had a board meeting, and it was 10:30 at night, and I literally gave the passion test at 10:30 at night to the board, spontaneously. And one board member did the passion test, and she was so shocked that her number one passion was something so simple. She just wanted to tandem ride with her husband. She decided to give the same test to her husband, and to their surprise, his number one was to tandem ride with his wife.
Amazing.
For 3 years now, they have not missed 1 month, and they live in Colorado. They even bike in the winter in the snow. Your life changed from one simple decision to get aligned and to identify what they wanted and how they wanted to live. As simple as that. Passion is not complicated. You just have to choose it.
I would agree. So lastly, what is one piece of advice that you would give to people who are confronted with challenges, and specifically those that are deaf and are part of this community that you're fortunately involved with and in?
Well, that's a good wrap up. Here's the thing. We are human. All of us as humans will face a lifetime of adversity, of things, of barriers, of challenges, of things that are happening, misfortunes. It's life. It is our life journey. We have within us the power to do three things. One, we can choose our response to our thoughts. We can choose our attitude, and we can choose our actions. Those three. When we face a barrier, a challenge, adversity, what is the gift? If you look, there's always a gift, always a blessing. There's so many stories of all of us, people with disabilities who have faced some horrendous challenges, and you find the beauty in it. Well, there is beauty in the challenge. There is a blessing in the lesson.
I think that's a great wrap up. You're a lovely person, and I hope to meet you one day.